And then we can start. So, good evening, everybody. In this very small but very fine and delicious group. A warm welcome on behalf of Artscenico. My name is Maximilian Lange, and as a chairperson of this wonderful federation, I'm delighted that you find your way today to join us. Beside football and all other things happens around the world. Today we want to explore from different angles the question: who is actually in charge of our working condition, what we can do, and how could we change if we can change. And so I'm very pleased that we have the experienced production designer and former BFDG chairperson, Sonja Klaus from London, as our guest, who will also guide us through this evening. Welcome, Sonja. Thank you very much for your time. Further, we want to take a broader view on the topic, and with the help of Kurt Brazda from the Imago Working Conditions Committee, we want to have a look on working conditions in figures based on the European-wide Imago survey. Welcome, Kurt, and thank you for your time. And last but not least, we have Johannes Studinger, the head of UNIME, the global union representing 140 worldwide unions, to follow up the question, what's the role of the unions in this game, and what can they do, and what are their limits? Thank you very much, Johannes, for your time today. Welcome. But before we start, our heartfelt thank you should go to our partners from Artscenico, of course. Like every time I have to say this, we have to thank the Costume House Cornejo, the Prop House Delicatessen, and the light and technic supplier Roscoe, and the technic supplier from France, Transpalux. Without the help, such meeting like this couldn't happen. Thank you very much for the support. And now enough from my side. I will hand over to Sonja. She will guide us through this evening. Sonja, the stage is yours. Thank you very much. Have fun this evening.
Thank you very much, Maximilian. Just to reiterate, my name is Sonja Klaus, and I'm a production designer in the film and television industry, which I've been doing for quite some time. And I have worked all over the world, and I have experienced lots of different working conditions. And I was delighted to be asked to come to moderate this evening to talk about the working conditions that we often experience. Particularly, I can talk from the art department side, and I see what happens in production. But I think that it's a very important conversation to have. And I also know it's a very awkward conversation for people to often have, and particularly people who are just coming into the film industry. They're never really quite sure how they can discuss, I'm tired, I can't do 14-hour days. Not that you should be expected to do that, but sometimes you are. And often people are not paid well enough, and there's often a fight about overtime. And so it goes on. And when you are a head of department like me, you try your best to try to help people to understand what the working conditions are, what the hours are. But you can only do that if you have the right backup from production and from other people. And I always say to people, just remember that for every action, there is a reaction of what you do. And I think it's a very important thing, particularly in the art department. I'm always talking about thoughtfulness of others. And especially when I'm doing, for example, my deal with a company, and they may offer me a certain amount of money, and I have to think not just about myself, but I must be thinking about the people who are below me, and how what I decide to do is going to affect what those people get paid and the conditions that those people are going to be expected to work in. And I know it's not an easy subject, and I just feel, and Maximilian has brought this up, that it's a vicious circle and a cycle that we need to break, and we need to try to change it. And I know it's not easy. And I think it's often you wonder who's in charge when you're on a production. You often sometimes feel, I know I do, I can sometimes feel like it's not a group effort. I sometimes feel like there's production and then there's us. And I often look and see how production get treated. And sometimes, I think, oh, look, here they come with all their lovely trailers and all the wonderful lavatories that they've suddenly got when they arrive. Yet when we've been there, if I ask for water, sometimes I get asked that that's too much, and that I'm why am I being so over the top about asking for something that I consider to be quite basic? And so I think the question is, who is in charge and why, and what are they going to do? But not only using that word to discuss about productions and in charge, I also think that we have to sometimes think about how we can be in charge of ourselves and how we can manage a production and how we can make it better. And I do say to my arts partners quite often, I say, who's in charge when we're sitting at a table? And they all look around and they go, well, you're in charge. And I go, no, that's wrong. You're all in charge of yourself, and you are all in charge. And you just need to learn to take that and use that confidence and moving forward to help yourself and help others, and particularly people who are coming into the business who don't really understand what they're supposed to do. And I think that's one of the reasons that I was really keen to be involved in this particular discussion, because I personally, with all my years of experience, I do think that it is something that is not openly discussed, because it's almost like a bad smell, and productions often want it to go away, and they don't want you to be difficult. They just want you to provide. And of course, we all want to do that, and we all want to enjoy ourselves. And I think it's very important that when you're getting in your car or on the bus or on the train, or however you get to work or however you go home, doesn't really matter how you get to the place of work, that you need to be thinking in your head, I want to be here because I'm happy and this makes me happy. So we have to think, I think often, how do we create that happiness? And it's a very big thing for me within my own department that people are happy. And happiness comes from good working conditions and not having ridiculously long hours and people being overly tired. With having said that, I would very much like to hand over to Kurt, who has done this amazing presentation with lots of colors, and it's very impressive. And he's going to talk to you over the next sort of 30 minutes or so about the slides that he has put together, which are really informative. And I know I had a quick flick through. I had a very short time to look through them, but I picked up quite a lot from looking at them. And I think that it's great that he's spent the time to do it. So I'm just going to go over to you, Kurt.
Thank you, Sonja. I have to be first a bit honest. In my main profession, I'm director, but I'm still a member of Imago, of the Worldwide Federation of Cinematographers, because I'm still also cinematographer and my heart belongs to cinematography. I have to say this. And if we are talking about better working conditions, I think that the head of departments, directing, cinematography, set design, have, from my point of view, also a special social responsibility, because we can help our colleagues. We are important part of film production. We are, our work is crucial, yes. And so I think we should help solidaric also colleagues which are not so on the top, but which are very necessary to make a film. So maybe let me say this at the beginning. I will try now to put the PowerPoint on the screen. I hope it will happen. So I first want to introduce the Working Condition Committee of Imago, which I have the honor to be the chair. And These are the members of the committee, and you see we are mixed. We have Austria, we have Denmark, we have Norway, we are happy to have also Israel, we have Greece, and our legal advisor, Dr. Christina Busch, is situated in Spain, but she's German, and she's very helpful for what we are doing in this. Yes, okay. Let's talk first about money. An immense amount of money, and you see the Dagoberts of the CEOs of the big Netflix, and they are very happy because they get a lot of money, and you see the money is the only thing they want to have, and sometimes they have no idea what is happening at the bottom of the ground. Yes, and I will address two amounts, which from my point of view, as described very well what's going on, how much are the takeovers in our industry. The first is $46 billion, and the second is $140 billion. And $46 billion, global cinema revenues are rising again after a slump during the coronavirus pandemic. They are expected to reach 46 billion in 2023. By 2026, they could even grow to almost 50 billion. These are very big amounts. And then $114 billion. The experts expect streaming to have on average annual growth rate of plus 7.6% and sales of 140 billion by 2026. Okay, you see, they are very happy. Netflix, Google, and they are collecting money. This is the one side of the coin. But this is the other side. It is our side, because we are working. We are making the money for them. It's our power, our creativity, and we have the feeling that especially in the last years, we are under big pressure, and the pressure is increasing. And so I think we have to react. Yes, and I will tell you something about maybe also what are our possibilities to react, because we have possibilities. It's a very hard work. It's not easy, I know, but I think there are possibilities, and there we can react. Okay, so this is a sentence we published in our urgent call. I will tell about it afterwards. Billions in sales are made in the film and audiovisual industries. It's a great shame that the people who make this incredible added value possible through their work find unbearable production conditions. This is a very important sentence we always use when we are in discussion with governments, with producers, and also if we have the possibility to speak to somebody from the big five on the top. But this is very important to keep in mind, that this is unbearable. But what's wrong with our working environment? And there we found out 4 points which are typical for the wrong way where our working environment is now going on. The pervasive culture of long hours, over 50 per weeks, 15 and 14-hour days is more the rule than the exception. Then lack of adequate turnaround time for rest is too small, and lack of adequate weekend time. And there are a lot of other things. We have a lot of pressure. There we have also sexual harassment. There's a lot of other things but these are the 4 points which are very important, because these are the points which gives an impact to our health. And this is very important to keep this in mind. Yes. So, and then we have a very interesting sentence from Christy Hoffmann. He is the General Secretary von Uni Global Union, and I know that he is very involved in the issue. Recurrent overtime and inadequate rest during and between workdays is not the exception, but the rule in the global film industry. The existing long hours culture is a global pandemic and needs to be addressed. And this is exactly what we want to do in our committee, to address it. But there is a very basic problem, and this is the problem of budget cuts. And we think that budget cuts has to be questioned. They are not, they have not seen as natural law. Because the greatest health risk due to work pressure because of budget cuts to increase profits. This is a matter of fact. And let us say what do I mean with this? The income we are entitled to is being reduced in favor of enormous profits, benefits for management, and dividends to shareholders. And there's a big problem seeing the companies who make the productions as mere capital companies. Audiovisual companies no longer have any relationship with the people who create their value. They have no idea what's going on at the bottom. Yes, they only want to satisfy a shareholder's value, and it's not the people on the ground are for them. Let me say, sometimes I say digital slaves. It's a hard expression, but I think it's not so wrong. And then, therefore, we need to rethink. Not we are dependent on these companies, they are dependent on us. I think it's very important, because if we keep this in mind, we have a better standing in our awareness, because without our work, they will lose their livelihood. I sometimes told this to our colleagues working for TV stations, and the TV stations make a lot of budget cuts. And I try to explain them that without your work, they cannot do anything. Yes, but this is our strength. We are strong if we be aware of this matter of fact. I know it's idealistic, but it's a matter of fact. And you saw in the United States, there was a strike, and everybody, the producers, were completely confused. Yes. So we should use this issue. We should use this instrument to stand for our rights. Okay. We must therefore increase our self-confidence. This is clear. And you see, Charlie Chaplin is a good example doing this in modern times. Okay, so there's another very important question. Does filmmaking make you sick? And it's a pity. Yes, indeed. We made the experience. We made a survey in Austria about the same issue, about working conditions. We find out a lot of people got sick because of the pressure in their working environment. And what kind of sickness we have? We have fatigue as a result of brutal schedules, chronic lack of sleep leads to accidents, physical challenges, including anxiety, memory loss, obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and more and more. And this we have figures also from Great Britain, where some incidents were caused by people who didn't sleep, and there were a lot of bad accidents which wouldn't have happened if the working condition would have been okay. So, and then we have the burnouts. We made in Austria also the experience that a lot of people fell in a burnout, and therefore they had a loss of earnings. Yes. And we have another problem, which is coming now, which now is very recent. The German did a survey about age discrimination, and they made the experience that all the colleagues lose their jobs because they want now only people which are around 30 or younger, because they are much more cheaper. And the long problem is we are slithering in age poverty. We have in Austria some people who were very good in the profession, who earned money, and suddenly it was a break because they were too old. And the break was when they have been 50 years. So they are old, but they want to have younger people, and they want to make a special pressure to them. This is very a problem. So this is the mission statement of Imago, of the Imago Committee. It's Imago's responsibility as international solidarity community to contribute stopping the negative trend from worse to worse, and to implement better working conditions in the audiovisual sector. This is, I think, this our mission statement. We try to do is, I say again, it's hard, it's not easy, but it has to be done. Okay, but what have we done until now? Because we are working in continuity. First, we did our first Imago survey in February 2012, living and working conditions of cinematographers. It was elaborated together with Dr. Christina Busch, our Imago legal advisor, and now also legal advisor of our committee. I think she's present. She can also give answers if there are questions. And this first Imago survey showed us a lot of things which now are again or still, let me see, in charge. It has become worse. What we see, it has become worse if we compare what we get out in this first survey and what now is taking place in Austria, or we have heard a lot from South America. We have heard a lot from Poland that the working conditions are decreasing. It's going worse. So I think it's very important to do a second one. But first I want to tell you what we did after this. We got an invitation to the EU Parliament, where we explained the situation of the working environment in the film industry. And there is a special problem, the self-employment, because we made the experience that self-employment is increasing. Employment is going back and self-employment is increasing. What does it mean? Self-employed people are sometimes completely without social protection. They have no collective agreement. They have no regulations, but they are seen as companies, but they aren't. They are people. They are working together side by side with employed people, but they have not the same rights. And a result not only of our intervention, but there were a lot of intervention, was a result. It came last year by the EU Commission, and the Commission made a guideline called collective bargaining for self-employed. And this is very important because, you know, the EU Commission is the high priest of competition law. And the guideline says the following, yes. Collective negotiations of minimum fees and unions of self-employed workers are no longer considered a violation of competition law. And from my point of view, this is a milestone because self-employment, as I told you, in our industry is constantly on the rise. And we have to be aware that in future self-employment will also be the kind where we have to work in our profession. I made the experience that also in big movies, cinema or television, cinematographers, editors, or also, of course, set designers are working as self-employed. And so it's very important to find regulations for this group because it's crucial for our profession. So in October 2021, there was this terrible accident. The cinematographer Helena Hutchins was fatally shot by a revolver on set. Cause: sloppiness and lack of safety controls due to poor working conditions. It's now compared to there was this process, on the court that it was proved that there was a lack of safety controls and especially sloppiness. And this was for us, because we started this urgent call, which was the first time that that cinematographers all over the world made such a call, and this call was published, I can say, all over the world. It was published in the United States, it was published in Great Britain, and it was published also in the Southern Hemisphere. And we made special demands, and we said the last sentence: the death of a cinematographer cannot have been in vain. You can have this PowerPoint then on the recording. You can read it. It was signed by many cinematographers in the world, and it was signed by the board. It was signed by all committees, and I think it's sad, but it's more recent than before. Okay, and then we had the possibility to publish in some magazines. Very important is for us the British Cinematographer, which is an excellent magazine for cinematographers, but also for all filmmakers. And there I had the possibility to publish an article where, for me, the important sentence is: if we want to change something, then we must have the courage to do it ourselves, because no else will do it for us. This is my personal experience. I have this experience because I'm a representative of our professions for more than 40 years. And everything we could change, we started for ourselves. It's very important to keep in mind. So our project now, this survey. The project wants the following: consultation on status and working conditions for active cinematographers of the European and international film industry. This is the target group for the survey we are recent doing. The stage one is in conducting a survey on the working and living conditions of cinematographers in Europe as a role model for colleagues from other continents. I had the possibility to speak in Madrid to Artscenico organized a very good conference, very important conference, where from all departments colleagues were present, and I presented there a proposal that we do together a survey, all departments, to have more negotiation power and more political power. And I remember it was acclaimed that everybody said okay, but it's a pity it didn't happen. So we decided in Imago to do it, hoping that this could be also a role model for other departments. So so we understand it, and we are of course very interested to help you in any case. Every department can come to us, and we will help him. Of course, this is also a very kind of mission statement from the committee. Okay. Stage two is analyzing the results professionally with external scientific expertise, including reports. it's not, we cannot do this for ourselves. We have to work together with a high professional Polster institution. It's situated in Austria, and they will elaborate a report based of scientific results. And this is very important if you go to the public, if you go to the politicians, to say this is scientific proved. This is very important. Okay. Stage 3, working politically, presenting the report and our conclusions to relevant EU authorities and other instances, working towards members. This is what we want to do after the survey is on table. This is we want to present this if possible in Brussels, in the Parliament, because we have very good relations about an Austrian association called EUXXL, and I hope we can present this also in Brussels, as we did before, sometimes before. Yes, and the stage 4 would be a kind of spreading, working towards European and international film production environment, collaborating with national unions and colleagues, federations, publishing in the international film environment, media, and working actively with the audiovisual industry to implement their recommendations. This would be the hardest part, because it's very easy to get sentences. Okay, it has to be done, and to make Sunday speeches. We will do it, but to make it in reality is a very hard work. And I say it exactly. It's a work which has to be beyond generations. What we are doing, from my point of view, is I don't do this for my generation. I do this for my children and for my grandchildren. Yes, and we have to, and it's hard work, but it has to be done. And this, I think we have to keep this in mind. But because also the cathedrals, when they started to build them, the people who started to build them know that they never would see it in a finished version. So, and I think we have to see it in the same thing. Yes. But it's too philosophical. But it's necessary to do this, yes. So what's very important is we received strong political support for our project from the EU and from the UNESCO. And I want to tell you, we didn't get financial support, because we chose another way to finance our project. We have a lot of associations in Imago. Imago is now a World Federation, and we collect solidaric money, so that we can build up the project, and we are not dependent on anybody. So we make it with our money. But we are very strong supported by EU and UNESCO, and this will help us when we presenting the result. Okay, let us stand together for a better international working environment. Let's get started.
That was great, Kurt. Really good. I made some notes myself. Got some questions for you later. But I think before we get to that, we would very much like to hear from Johannes, who's going to talk to us about the UNI. And he'll do that for the next few minutes. And then there'll be questions later. So over to you, Johannes.
Yeah, thank you, Sonja, for the kind invitation to speak at this open forum. For those who tuned in a little bit later than the start, just a few words to myself. My name is Johannes. I'm leading the Secretariat of UNI-MEI. That stands for Media, Entertainment and Arts. We are part of a global federation of unions called Union Global Union. And Kurt already quoted my boss, Christy Hoffman, who is a formidable leader and a great support also for our union members. In our sector, in the media and entertainment arts sector, we gather about 140 unions and guilds. I would like to say that we are a pluralistic organization, so we do not really have high or very specific regulatory demands to become a member, but there are few. So you need to be an independent organization, and you need to be a union or union-like organization, meaning that one of your key priorities is to collectively bargain terms of conditions for workers in our sector that we represent, media, entertainment, and arts. Also, some of our unions and guilds are political, so they have a clear political color, let's put it that way, and some don't. And again, in our international work, that is not of our concern. We don't do politics, we do solidarity work. And then we have very different kind of member organizations, very broad organizations that cover several sectors: live entertainment, live performance, public television, commercial broadcasting, and independent film and TV production. And then we have very specific unions that only cover one sector, or only freelance workers, or sometimes only staff. So again, very pluralistic, and they are all come under one fold, and that's UNIME. So about 140 unions and guilds, most of them in North and South America and in the larger Europe, and a good part in the European Union. So in the next couple of minutes, I was asked to do a short presentation on what we do when it comes to working conditions, and more in general, and then also to look at the question who is in charge. So that's what I'm gonna do. I will do briefly explain what we do in general, and then drill down to working conditions, and then try to answer what we can do, or what everyone can do to improve working conditions in our sector. So in general, what does UNIME do as a global union federation? We basically do four things. First, we connect and facilitate the cooperation among our member organizations, and for instance, that can be on specific issues or a specific company. One example would be 2 or several member unions have an issue with the same company. Netflix is one and comes regularly up. And then we try to facilitate their discussions, and then approach together the company on the specific issue that has arisen. And what I can confirm, and what Kurt referred to in his presentation, most of the time, the issue that has been raised from a member organization, and then we try to solve it with other organizations, is actually on working conditions. The second thing that we do is grow capacity and solidarity. What does this mean? Is that we invest time, resources, sometimes money that we find either through our member organizations or donors or project money to help organizations, member organizations, to grow in their capacity. That can be quite simply getting more members, get them engaged, build structures, develop collective bargaining because maybe they don't have it yet. Give you 3 very short examples of what this can mean concretely. Turkey, Ukraine, Argentina. In Turkey, we have a broadcasting and media union that predominantly represents journalists, but they also have other crafts in the commercial sector. And they wanted to grow and get more collective agreements with outside foreign companies. So we set up a project with them, and since 2 years, they have been first organizing more members in those companies, and then concluding collective agreements for the first time with companies like Deutsche Welle, BBC, and others. Another example is Ukraine. Here, the solidarity or the capacity is much more different, terrible conditions, and actually what we do is we collect donations from member organizations and then channel that to our Ukrainian members, so that the member organization in Ukraine can actually help the families and the workers and the families of those entertainment workers that have lost their jobs, their life, their house, etc. So very basic form of solidarity work in our ranks. And the last is Argentina. Here, it's really to support regulatory advocacy. The new president has threatened to privatize all public service broadcasting, of course, to shatter their influence. And we have provided a lot of support and solidarity actions targeting members of Senate and the Parliament to reverse that decision or to mitigate the impact of those decisions. And ultimately, that reform that has been voted does not concern anymore the audiovisual sector, which is a success for and foremost of our Argentinian member organizations, but very much supported in the region throughout the Americas. The third thing that we do is that we engage employers. That can be on company level, especially if they work across borders, whether it's co-productions or media companies that are present in different territories, but also at sectoral level. So we have built over the last decades structured relationship with employer associations like the International Federation of Film and Video Producers, FIAP, or the European Producers Organization, CEPI, that represents independent TV producers. And we engage them over a multitude of issues like gender equality, promoting gender equality in front and behind screen and stage and set, health and safety, the impact of sustainable production modes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The hardest thing, though, to engage those guys is working conditions. So that's a very, very tough thing. But we have started a dialogue with FIAP on what we call welfare conditions. But it's a very slow process, and it took many years to engage them. The last thing that we do as UNIME is to weigh in on behalf of our combined membership on regulation at regional level and at global level. So, of course, the EU is one key target, but also the OECD, the ILO, which is the International Labour Organization, and as well WIPO, which deals with copyright and related rights. And so we spend quite a lot of time to monitor and then inform and act. And in the past, I think the two things that have been the most valuable has been the work that many organizations together with us have done on the EU Copyright Directive, which includes a chapter on fair remuneration. And in that chapter, collective bargaining is recognized as a means to obtain fair remuneration. And we have started a dialogue together with FERA and FSE in a joint project to actually engage those employer associations of producers, but also broadcasters, how to best implement those provisions on fair remuneration for authors in the audiovisual sector. So that's what we do in general. On working conditions, more specifically, I would like to focus on long hours. Court actually presented some of the key conclusions of our report that we issued in 21. You will find that lengthy report on our website. But I want to talk to that issue in a more general term, because Sonja said that for you guys who are actually in the working place, it's a hard thing to address. And the question is, who's in charge is a delicate one. Well, I can confirm that for union leaders that come together in UNIME, and most of them are either general secretaries or CEOs of a union representing workers from different crafts in the industry, for them to address together working hours is also a delicate thing. Why? Because unfortunately, it's a competitive factor in a global industry. So to be very frank with you, UNIME has spent a lot of time, about 10 years, to bring our membership together, the leaders of those unions together, to discuss working time and to determine, okay, the question was, can we as a global federation actually work together to address working time? And if yes, how do we do it? So we first undertook a survey to lay out how the situation is. And I won't repeat what Kurt said. I think it's pretty clear from his report that we completely share how the conditions are, and it's mirrored in our report of 21 on long hours. So on that report was presented and debated in our, we have a working group on film and TV production, global working group, and that was turned into a statement, similar probably to the Imago mission statement, that actually for the first time in our history came to the thing that all unions agreed that together they want to make working time, reduction of working time, a union priority wherever productions are and wherever unions are located. So there was a joint commitment to support each other, to address working time and long hours, and to work together to reduce working hours in a structural way. So that happened in 21. So it's not so long time ago. And I think the strike in the US has been a very good example of, in recent times, how actually that can work. So when I say the strike, of course, there were the actor strike, but also our two affiliates, member unions, the Writers Guild East and the Writers Guild West, were on strike. And of course, a lot of the strike was on pay, on new funding models for the writers, for the impact of generative AI, which was really the cause then of the strike at the end. But also working hours played a role, for instance, when you look at the demands of both guilds on minimum staffing, because minimum staffing basically means more working time available and less pressure on the staff writers. But it also showed that this struggle to improve the working conditions is only possible if there's a solidarity. So the solidarity was very strong within the writers. But more importantly, I think for the success was also that the solidarity was very impressive across the entertainment industry. Give you just one example. Even if the writers wanted to strike particular productions, they depend on the Teamsters and IATSE to actually tell them where those productions are taking place, and also have those colleagues not cross the picket line, which is complicated, but it worked, and it worked for very, very long time. And that basically brought back the producers to the table. So this example shows that it is possible, but it is only possible if the union itself has a lot of power, but also if the union has the ability to work with other unions, with sister unions, to create that solidarity that's ultimately necessary to break the backlog. So last but not least, let me address the question, who is in charge? So, you know, it's a very difficult question, I would say, because I think everyone is in charge. You know, for me as a bureaucrat of a global federation of unions, I won't preach to you guys who actually are, you know, those who suffer from the working conditions, who are exposed. The only thing I would say is that for every level, for the individual level, within the departments, the associations, the unions, other organizations, everyone has a role. And I think it's important that each organization clearly defines its role and acts on it. And I can only say what we do as a federation with our member unions. It's really to focus on collective bargaining. So our driving element is to bring more collective bargaining to more places where film and TV production takes place. And that means building unions that can represent workers, whether in one craft or different crafts or all crafts together, and engage the employer of collective bargaining. So that's what we're trying to do as a community, as a movement, is together to empower member organizations or organizations that don't yet really exist or are not yet unions or guilds that are capable of collective bargaining, that we bring them to that level. And we have seen quite a lot of young organizations who make very infant steps, but actually do go from getting a group together, define the priorities, and then engage employers and collectively bargain. But there are also other roles that we have, and that's certainly raise the awareness. And I think the report that we issued exclusively with a trade paper in the US, with Variety in 21, was one purpose was also to raise the awareness that there is a problem, a systemic problem that needs to be addressed, and that actually the unions of this world are aware and want to fight it together to make it better. Of course, that only works if the union members are in there. So it's very important for our member unions that they actually make working time an issue when they have member meetings, when they do visits to productions, when they have their campaigns. And that's, you see that more and more in different constituency. We have seen it in throughout the pandemic in Brazil and Argentina, in Europe, in many places. And the last element is on regulation, and that's specific to the EU. The court has mentioned the guidelines of the Commission on self-employment. That's a helpful tool, but it was very hard to get. And actually, we have spent hours and hours to explain to the Commission that actually that not only the labor needs to be taken into account, but also if a one man or one woman company is renting its equipment to the producers, that should not exclude that person for being able to be covered by collective bargaining. So it took a lot of understanding, and you never know whether this understanding remains in such an institution. So it's a continuous fight, but it removes an important barrier. And only a couple of months after the guidelines have been published, we are working now with a couple of new organizations. Some of them don't want to be called union. That's okay, but they want to do collective bargaining. And we will help them through capacity building, through trainers, because they have never done collective bargaining. They only represent self-employed workers, but they want to do it. So what we will do is we will help them as much as we can to empower them and to guide them through how you do collective bargaining, how you do a campaign, and so forth. But looking forward to what organizations like Imago or Artscenico, your national member organizations, can do in Europe on trying to improve working conditions, or let's say the framework for working conditions, we actually have an opportunity. And with that, I would like to conclude, is that in November 23, the European Parliament, based on an impact assessment on studies on the status and working conditions of artists and workers in the creative industries, long title, asked for a new framework on the status and working conditions for workers in the sector. So not just our workers, but more large. What is good with such an approach, larger means it will happen. If it's to a small group, the EU institutions don't move. The European Commission has already answered to that report and actually has set out a framework of how to address it. I won't go into details, it would take much too a long time. There are a wide range of measures that the Commission is announcing in dialogue with social partners, so the unions as well as employers. But one is to create minimum standards for publicly funded projects in the cultural work. That will start at the European level with Creative Europe and the new legal basis for Creative Europe. And you can see how quick that can trigger reactions with employers. Because when I made a presentation about the report and the follow-up with the European Commission to the board of directors of the public broadcaster in Belgium, the first question of the CEO of RTBF, the French-speaking public service broadcaster, to me was, Johannes, does this mean we have to change our applications to Creative Europe to make sure we adhere to minimum standards, including for self-employed? And of course, my answer was yes. That was a lie because the Commission has not stated yet. But you can see that the power of those regulations. Now the question is how much arrives at your level, because all we do is on a helicopter level. That's what it is, and it does not take away the immense pressure we get reported in our reports on the effects of accidents, mental health problems, physical health problems, that long working hours. It's a long fight, but I think all I can say is that the organization I have the honor to work for, all the leaders are committed to do it. They're committed to work with people like Lou, like colleagues from Imago, from FAIR, and other organizations that we work with regularly. And we will continue to engage with you guys. Thank you very much.
That was really interesting, Johannes. I think there's a lot that people can learn from that. My gosh, you've done so much work. I can't believe it. Yeah, I think it's so necessary. We're going to have some questions now. So if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, please feel free to put them in the chat below, and then I will put them out to the group to hopefully answer. You might not have any. I do have a question, just while you're all thinking about a question. Working times are an issue. I was going to put this to Johannes, just because often in the art department, we are very heavily affected by the schedule, which is created by not necessarily us, but it's the schedule based on the script that we are provided. And it's affected by availability of actors, availability of locations. I mean, there are many factors that often go into the scheduling, length of time given to create construction on the stages. And I do often find quite sometimes that a very big set will be put, for example, on a Monday, and we'll have a whole conversation with a line producer about, well, we need to work on Saturday and Sunday. And the line producer will be like, well, no, I'm not paying for any overtime. So you find that week before, you're having to say to people, well, you know, we've got to get it finished and we have to get it done, because no matter how hard you try as an HOD, whether it's me or the construction manager or my supervising art director or the set decorator, to try to get some understanding, maybe could we not have that set on a Monday? I think often that is the problem, and it's hard for me because I never really know how I can change that. And I think I'm just using that as one example. And I wondered if, when you mentioned about, you talk about it, and Kurt did mention it, that, it's about, we have to have the courage to implement change ourselves. And I'm just asking you and saying, is there work that we can do or something we can offer to encourage those members of the art department or costume or whoever that affects, that it is okay that they have a voice, that they can speak to someone about this situation that they've been put in? And I don't know how you feel about that, but it is I will be honest, it's a common problem. And I never seem to manage to be able to break through to get help with that. And I think often, our problems do arise from scheduling and access availability, et cetera, and that can often make all the things you've talked about come to light.
Yeah, I can quickly react to that. First, I can confirm that actually in the discussions and when we presented the report on working time to our working group, global working group, actually Spencer McDonald from Back to mentioned several times, and others from many different countries confirmed that one of the biggest problems is exactly what you described, which we could summarize as bad time management. And that's so that's a very hard question, because I think awareness raising is very important, but that also becomes a collective issue because it cuts across the very different departments. But it's also, well, it's a management issue. So we have raised it, for instance, with the producers associations, and they always brush it away and point to creativity and the constraints. That's not union business. Basically, that's what we get told. But I think from a personal perspective, if I may, I also would say that sometimes unions are distant to that question. So for them, it's important to get better rates, reduce the working time on paper in the collective agreement, but they are not granularly aware of your problems. And that only goes if you have the structures on a production that actually helps you to address it. I don't know how this works, in the productions that you are concerned. My experience is that in the vast majority of productions that we know of, there is very little. It's only when there's a structural problem that our member organizations would come onto the set. And it's not a smaller, let's say, it's not a small issue, of course, but it's those questions that you raised. We just were in a meeting in Finland a couple of weeks back, and our Swedish affiliates reported on health and safety, and they have the right to go on set when a health and safety issue is arising. But it's very delicate because, as you described, as with working hours, but sometimes the health and safety issue that is raised with the union representative is actually connected to working hours. But it takes a very, very long time. And our representative said, actually, most of the time it takes too long. It's already with the fires burning that then someone can provide some more structural assistance. So I think if in within your team then, but also with them, there needs to be more awareness of this needs to avoid it and to have more channels of addressing it. But also work with if you're a member of a union or your association to address it in a more structural way and make it an issue with the companies and the association of the companies in your country.
Yes, yeah. I also hate to bring this up in case anybody finds this a delicate subject, but it's also, especially, it happens a lot in television, of late scripts. And I would have to say that impacts every department, and that causes so much anxiety for everybody. And then that creates this scenario of long hours and the whole thing and schedules and everything. And I just am not sure, because I remember back in the day, I can say that back in the day, I don't remember it being as bad as this. I do remember starting a job, and if it was a 6-part TV show, you'd get 6 scripts, and you might then get pink and blue pages to add along, but you wouldn't have this huge, massive change. Or quite often you get sent a script and they say, oh, that's the script, but that's not the script. And you're like, so where's, oh, it's coming. So particularly in the arts department, and particularly in departments where you're spending money, and also if you're a director, I don't know, it's a bloody nightmare trying to sort of, wrangle how that's going to work. And I think that is also a huge problem. And how does that get fixed? How are we fixing that? I've started jobs before now, we've had no script. And I'm thinking, oh, someone's said yes to this, but we don't have a script. And then we get one like 4 days before we're supposed to shoot. And they say, oh, that's the script. And oh, right. Well, I got told we were shooting in a barn. No, we're not shooting in a barn. It's got to be a restaurant and it's somewhere else. And you're like, oh, right. Okay. And I think, I'm just using that as a sort of slight comedy element. It's not all too depressing, this conversation. But I would be interested to see how, I think that's a hard one to tackle and comment on. What do you think? Maximilian, you're raising your hand.
No, I just wanted to ask or to precise the question to Johannes, because as I understand him, it's more or less about perception of human needs in this kind of upper floors of production companies and so on. And as I understood you, there's no chance to implement this kind of awareness in the work of the unions. Is it like this? So that we have to, because also this kind of the late scripts and we all do know these problems. And if there's kind of an idea of an awareness of this, this is kind of a human need for us, because following overtimes and so on, everything in each department. And my question would be how to implement this idea beside working hours, paying monies, and all this stuff. There's something more we have to bargain for it in a way. I don't know how. And
I would be very interested to know what Bill thinks about this, being as Bill's very experienced director, having done lots of big series. And I know that's probably me stepping outside and putting Bill in the spotlight. But I just think, Bill, you've done a lot of, a long season of a particular show, and and it runs and runs. And I would be really interested to know what you, I'm sure you're totally aware of this, but I would love to know what you think about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, Kurt and Johannes, for your excellent presentations. Late scripts are the absolute bane of everyone's life. Just for all the reasons you say, and I think that they're an example of creative management at the higher levels behaving like capital companies, because they have no idea what is the implications of these late scripts. They just want to make it better. They genuinely do, and they keep adjusting the scripts to perfect them until the last possible moment. But I think one of the things that strikes me, I love modern times, Kurt, but I'm just struck by the fact that as a model of industrial relations, Charlie Chaplin has no possibility to make the product better. If you slow down the production line and pay him more money, it's just a negative cost to the employer, because he's not going to make whatever it is he's making any better if you improve his working conditions. But I think that what Sonja's reaching for is the notion that if I turn up on a big set on a Monday that she hasn't been able to prepare properly, the customer's going to suffer. It's not just me being frustrated and Sonja being frustrated that we're not doing our best work. I think that what we have to do in some kind of way is to say that working conditions is not just about health and welfare of the workers, but you inhibit their possibilities to be creative and productive. And by doing that, you are depriving the customer of what they are paying for. They're getting a diminished experience. I think that because people who are handing us down late scripts don't understand what they are losing, for example, by having a big set on a Monday morning first thing and not being able to pay overtime to actually have it serviced properly to tell the story. I don't think they understand the effect that it has. To the extent they would say it doesn't matter, the audience won't notice it, which is for those of us who are creative, authorial heads of department, who are storytellers, it is awful. As a working condition, I don't know.
I would have to agree with that. That is often, Jonathan's nodding his head too, as another production designer. I would say for us, that's true. And it is quite painful, and you feel that you're having to compromise. Sometimes we have to compromise so much that we just think, well, what are we doing? And I think that in itself then causes this tension. It's a vicious circle, isn't it, of how it goes round. And I just think, for me, I think it's about I can't speak for anyone else, but I'm speaking myself. I think you have to try in your own small way to try to help with it and try to ease that pain. And particularly if you are working with the department, and you, Bill, being a director, you're obviously at the top, and how you're feeling and your emotions, it is going to have an effect on everyone below you, because it just is. And, and that's the thing for me, Johannes, is for people to be happy in what they're doing and be respected. And I think that's quite a tricky one with some people. And I don't know how you cure that as such, but you can all make you can make an effort yourself, to make that better for the people that are around you, I think.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bill. I agree totally with you, because our creative work is our let me see, is the target. We want to have a really good atmosphere to be creative. This is very important. And I have made the same experience, especially in television, in stations, in broadcasters. They wanted to make cheaper. And this problem with the scripts is a problem, especially if you're working for television. I think it's also, it's everywhere. But I think from my point of view, and I'm talking here also as director, I think if you communicate with your crew, or if we are respected, if there is respect and understanding between, I think it's the best way to make a high quality. And on the other hand, to stand for the rights. The problem is that we are separated. So this is the problem. The problem of a lack of solidarity is that they separate us. Divide et impera, the Latin word, yes? And we have to find a possibility to be together. And I think a crew, yes, working on a film, we are working together on a wonderful idea. We are making a lot of ideas, and we work together. This is a family. We have to find this family feeling and then say, okay, this is our way to do it, and not the way the production wants to do it. Because of course, it's sometimes must be necessary to have overtime. We know our branch. But from my point of view, it's possible when you have 5 days, 8 or 10 hours, and you are professional, you can work very relaxed, and you can make your job. And we have another problem. Especially young people say, we have in Austria, we have 60 hours per week. It's normal, 60 hours per week. And a lot of young guys say, okay, wonderful, 60 hours is a lot of money I get. But if you analyze the 60 hours, you will see the overtime is so low in this, that it is a kind of, let me say, of exploitation. And my point of view is we need to have longer production times and make this in a family-friendly, human pattern of hours. Because, of course, somebody working only maybe 40 hours at the moment in the week, he earns less. But if we extend the working, the productions, and I think it's very important, because we are all not only self-employed, but we are freelancers, and it is necessary to have a long working time to have better later on a good pension. Yes, and it's very important to put in the brains of the producers that we need longer production times, and I'm sure it wouldn't be not such a problem, because it would count. It would not be so expensive. But I think we don't question this budget cutting, yes. And this is, from my point, very important. We have, and this is also for me a task of the unions to question budget cuts, because in many cases they are absolutely not understandable.
I do agree with you, Kurt. I mean, for me, that's like a whole other, I think, budgeting, scheduling, length of time for working on a project. I'm sure you probably agree, Maximilian, is a whole other conversation to have about how that works for people. I wanted to bring up one little tiny thing. Laura, I can't see you, but I know you're there. And you did raise something in the little chat box, which I do think it is an important issue Laura's brought up about working, not just working conditions, but the way that working conditions can affect us, the uncertainty of the industry, how that affects us, and that work is not guaranteed. I think, Laura, if I could just keep it brief to that, I think it's a difficult thing being a freelancer, as we all know. And I think it's been very difficult this last few years for everyone because of the strikes. And I can tell you that, it's not the end of the business. It certainly isn't. And sometimes we have these gaps that happen, this sort of ebb and flow that occurs in the business. And I would say that I don't know where you live, or to anybody, but I used to be the chair of the British Film Designers Guild, and we say in the guild, no one is ever alone. You're never alone in this. No one is ever alone, and that's why we encourage people to come to our meetings or join us, because there are other people that can talk to you about how that feels. And there are people like me who've been a freelancer for 33 years, and people like me can guide people through it and explain to them that this is not the end, because I've had a lot of emails, I've had a lot of emails in the last 6 months from people who are very nervous about the future. But as we know, there was a positive move this morning in Hollywood. And so we're all going to chug forward, and we know that people are still going to watch telly, and people are still going to go to that cinema and eat that popcorn and those very fattening sausages you get in a roll with lots of mustard and ketchup. And we just know they're not going to not do that, because we're sociable people ultimately. Or we might watch it on a big telly at home with a hot dog and some friends and some popcorn. So I don't know if that helps you at all with answering your question. I just want to know if there's anyone else that has anything that they want to say. You've all been very well behaved and very quiet. There's going to be a test off to see if you all listened all the way through, and there'll be questions sent to you, and we're expecting answers, aren't we, Max, to see if you've gained anything from this. And I think I certainly have. I know I'm the moderator, and I kind of I can express myself freely. But I think it's a really important conversation to have. And I think if you go away with anything, for me, it's, about the solidarity of your group that you're in, about who you're with, and looking out for other people and trying to get it across. I mean, I've worked on productions where it's been absolutely fine, I'll be honest. It's been absolutely great. And we've all had a great time. And then I've worked on productions where it's been absolutely diabolical. I think that COVID brought out lots of strange things happened, and a lot more mental illness has occurred. That's a whole other conversation for another day. And, I myself, would love to have some more training on how to help people with that. I'm not a therapist, but sometimes I feel I am. And I don't know. I think this was a really valuable exercise to do, so that people can hear about what other people like Kurt and Johannes are doing to try to make our lives better and to try to make the working environment better. And I know, Max, you feel very passionate about this whole sort of subject. And I don't know if you'd like to round off now with everybody, because I'm sure they probably might want to go and watch that football that they've all been watching on their screens secretly, or those emails that they've all been answering secretly, or playing with a puppy secretly, which I've been doing with my foot. So I'd like to thank you all myself personally, but I'd love to hand it over to Max to have the final say.
So thank you very much, Sonja. I really appreciate you moderating here. And I just want to encourage the people to come up with some questions if you don't know. But what I take from this discussion is this expression from Kurt, this building on a cathedral, which I really like, and we should take home, everybody here in this round and in our organizations. A work of solidarity is, working like on a cathedral, and it will take a time, and we have to start by our own stuffing our own teams. Our own teams for each project is important where we start, and then in the end, we can, we have to address our needs to to the unions in a way, in the best way. And so if there are not further questions from you, I don't know what's going on in the chat, if there's something going on there. I would thank you, Sonja.
Yeah, there's just Anna has just dropped in something.
Okay.
She's got a question for you, Kurt, which is, you said about age poverty. I'm curious, what is the idea to make all young and more experienced creators to coexist and learn from one another? My question is coming out from the huge discussion we had on the last ASC meeting.
Okay, I agree totally. We must come together. We have more generations on the set. From my point of view, is a winning situation, and I think we need this mutual respect. I learned a lot by young people. I learn always. I'm teaching, and I always learn from my students. I think we have to raise this awareness that if there are several generations on a set, and all the diversity of life on a set, yes, female, male, maybe queer, everything, it makes life more interesting, and I think it raises the creativity. That's my personal experience. I think this is what we should work on, to make this clear, that diversity is very important to make our job in the best way. Well
said. Max, do you want to say something? Sorry, I cut you off with the question.
No, of course. Nothing to add, Kurt. I mean, in that way, no, I really have to thank you all. First of all, Johannes, for your wonderful insights in your work and in your organization. For me, and I hope for all the others, it's very interesting to see what's going on there. In the business of the unions, and it's so important to be more in touch. I would say we have to exchange more about this, what's going on, and we try to do this in the next times, that we have to get more this kind of informations. And I really love this survey from Imago, and I could imagine as a good example for other organizations to do something like this. And I'm really curious to see the real numbers and figures of when we can expect the wonderful diagrams and numbers of this survey code. What do you think?
We will have it in autumn.
In autumn, okay.
Yes.
So please let us know, and because we want to share.
Maximiliano, may I say something?
Of course, Carlo. Ciao. Buonasera.
Ciao. No. Just to let you know what's going on with us in Italy. Just to because I heard something that is very incredible, like the 60 hours for week, stuff like that. So just to let you know that we are finally closing, after 20 years, the new contract of the cinema troops and the audiovisual. So that means series, television series. I'm quite sure that in 2 months we will finish. And I don't know what's going on in the other country, but anyway, we made, after so many years, some rules with our association, all of us, with the syndicate, and we are making the new contract. So the new contract, it says that we can work maximum 45 hours a week. The overtime, there cannot be more than 3 hours a week, but of course, you can talk with the production. And finally, we found the minimum rates for each department. In 10 new level, I mean, before we had less level, we had 7 level, now we have 10 level, okay? So, and for example, the apical figures like the costume designer or production designer or the DOP are at the level 10. And so we go back, going to the supervisor at level 9, and after we have the level 8, the assistants. So we finally decide the level of each figure of each department. That can be a different department, so can be the costume designer or the production designer. So each of the department has the new level. So finally, we got at the end. We are at the end of our contract. So just to, I mean, this is just to let you know that probably we will finish the contract, and so that means the government will sign it absolutely during maximum in October. That is what we are fighting, and at the end, after so many meeting every week, so I think that we are going to finally have hit the new contract after 20 years. Okay, that's it.
Great. So it seems you are happy with this contract.
Yeah, at the end, yeah, it looks like yes. I mean, because, you know, it's important to fix also the minimum rate, because the dangerous things that now the production, they're going to pay, especially the new people that are going in our job, you know, with the ridiculous rates, the ridiculous weekly rate. So we have to fix the minimum of the rate that the production they have to pay for our job, because we have too many people that they go to work, especially now that we have no work at all in Italy. You know, the people that go to work for some rates, they are really ridiculous, and they are ruining all the others rates. I mean, because, you know, of course, production, I mean, especially the production that they don't care about quality, you know, and we know that there are so many productions that they don't care about the quality. They go to call people, new people, that especially during the COVID situation and during the last year that we had so much work, they are the newborn, but without experience. And they ruined our level was so down last year because we had so many requests. And I think that happened also in the other countries in Europe. We had so much work and we had so many people. We increased so much the numbers in our department, in all the departments, you know, because we didn't have time. We didn't know how to call last year. Now it's the opposite. There are so many people that we added during the COVID or during the super work of last year. Now, instead to be 100,000 people not working, there are 2,000 people not working. You know what I mean? So, and that is why we are now fixing these rules. And also we have to fix the professional profiles, because we must create something that says if you do not have 5 years of experience, you cannot go and sign like as a production designer or costume designer or set designer. So,
I'd love to see them try and do that here. That would be interesting, wouldn't it, Adam O'Neill, to get them to say, oh, you can, I mean, how's that going to work? I don't know how, because I don't know how that works. It's like directors, isn't it, Bill? Not saying anything about any particular names, but, you know, people who've left film school last week and they're suddenly a big director. I'm like, wow, that's amazing how you did that. But, you know, they might be hugely talented. You don't know, do you, Carlo?
No, yeah. Well,
but I agree with you. I think it's a good, we used to have that, actually. We did have that. We had that years ago in England. You had to kind of go through the stages, but then that just all went by the wayside.
Yeah, but now we are going back and we must have this level, this professional level. Because, I mean, it's too many people that come to work without experience, and production, the fucking production, they call them because they cost nothing, and the production that they don't care about quality. I mean, there are also some directors that they don't care. It's important that they go behind the camera and start shooting, So, and that is what's going to happen in Italy. So we must stop this thing. And we are on a good way. And I think that we are at the end, and we will realize the final contract with these rules. We need rules. That's the thing. And it's not easy. It's not easy because we are fighting. But really, every week we are fighting. We are meeting, but step by step, at the end, we are getting what we want.
I love how much energy you have, Carlo. I don't know what you had for lunch, but I definitely should have had whatever you had.
I just want to add to that thought. I do think experience is as important as talent. And no matter how much raw talent somebody's got, I think the time spent getting to know the job and getting to know the departments and getting to know the structures is as important as any kind of notion of talent, because it just saves so much time. It's part of the job. I think it's a craft as well as an art, and I do think you have to learn it, and I think there's no substitute for that. That's so I'd agree totally with what Carlo.
And that links in with working conditions. Let's be honest, they all go together.
Totally does, yeah.
Well said, Adam. New elected member of the Academy. Just putting that out there to everybody. He was invited to join the Academy at Pampassi. Not that I had anything to do with it.
Sonja had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Okay, so I'm sure we could get on for a while, but I think we have to end at this point. But not without thanking you all, your guests. Thank you again, Sonja. Thank you again, Johannes. Thank you again, Kurt. And of course, as always, a special thanks goes out to Janki Schwarzhoff in our back office for making this happen here. The open forum takes a summer break and will return on September 18th. It will be about the philosophical aspects of dealing with AI. We have the Italian philosopher Daniela Tafani from the University of Pisa as our guest, and so you can look out for an interesting discussion again on AI. So thank you all, and I wish you a wonderful evening, good football game, and good night and good luck.